Talk to me with the coach, Mayden, as we're on the road today at USCO Field, where the Dodgers are visiting the White Sox, and ran across the man for the Dodgers, Tony Gwynn Jr. Got to put Tony Gwynn there. They might think of Griffey if I just say Jr.
Yeah, I know. So many of us are coming up following our fathers. You're going to end up with a lot of juniors when this game's all said and done.
Well, you know, I would call you Mr. Gwynn, but then that would be for Pops there.
Yeah, I'm a little too young for Mr.
We told kids that to play center field, that was the fastest position on the field. So how you wind up at center field?
That's a good question, because I'm not the fastest dude by any means on this team and in this league, but I think it has a lot more to do with instincts. I grew up taking fly balls with my dad in right field, so just getting that feel, being out there all the time, I really think developed my instincts for being out in center field, and I became pretty good over it over time. But I've also had a lot of really good teachers through the minor leagues and through the different organizations I've been with that have really been instrumental in me becoming a pretty good center fielder.
Who have been some of those mentors for you?
Eddie Cedar's one. Steve Finley was another one. I was a lot younger. We played with a teammate with my dad. Ricky Renteria, bench coach for the Padres, and even here, having Davey here, he's been a big help. So, that's one thing about this game. You constantly learn no matter how long you play.
So when you go out here and play Major League Baseball, it's every kid's dream. What is that experience like?
It's hard to describe. It's one of the most satisfying feelings I think you come across, besides getting married, having your children, things like that. But as far as sports is concerned, I wouldn't imagine anything better. You get to come out here, you got over 5 figures and fans here to watch you play every day, whether they're booing you or cheering you. It's still an adrenaline rush, and I enjoy being out there.
And, you just so happen to be playing with the Dodgers. Just a lot of mystique. Garvey, Ron Say, and I can go on and on with them legends in Dodger blue. So, how much of a privilege or how much mystique is that for you?
It's such an honor. I grew up on the other side of things. Being my dad played for the Padres, we typically hated the Dodgers for the most part. So, to get a chance to come over and be a part of this organization has been a tremendous honor. My uncle Chris, who played for the Dodgers throughout his 10-year career, 11-year career, he kind of gave me a heads up about how this is going to be like no other team I ever played for. You go on the road, you're going to have hundreds of Dodger fans there everywhere you go. So, like I said, it's a blessing and an extreme privilege.
So what do you think about this interleague play?
I'm a big fan of it. I grew up when this thing first started around that time, and it was exciting for me to get to see the King Griffey Juniors come over and play. Getting to see my dad go to different yards that he had never been in before, I always found it to be thrilling, and I enjoy it. I think it's a tougher matchup for the National League teams, because most American League teams are built, for the American League. So when National League teams come to the American League parks, they typically struggle. But I think it's still exciting for the fans to get to see different matchups that they haven't seen, and I think that's what it's all about.
Hey, I'm only 13, but I grew up in that Tony Gwynn era where he was one of the most prolific hitters in the game in his day.
Yeah.
How much of that has rubbed off on you?
Some of it has. I wish all of it would have, sometimes. But, there's only going to be one Tony Gwynn. The guy is probably one of the better, in my opinion, one of the better hitters ever play this game. So I'm proud of him, and it's an honor, like I said, to be his son.
So was your father dead, or was he the hero out on the baseball field?
Oh, he was a hero. He was a hero, in my opinion. He was dad and he was a hero. So, I always looked at him like his dad first, and then, after that, whatever he did on the field, it was just icing on the cake.
And I know you got to get back to work, so I'm going to ask you this one last question. When you walked in that Major League locker room for the first time and saw your uniform hanging up, what was that feeling like?
That was the moment for me, to walk in there and see my own name, my own number, up in the locker, and have my name up there in Arizona. That was the first place I played in. That was the absolute best part about, getting my first call up.
Coach, take you behind the scene with the man, Junior.